Good concept. So, bear with me this morning. As you can hear, I'm not in 100% health. The voice is kind of in and out. But just been a tough couple of weeks, hard couple of weeks. Just going out of town. It was supposed to be like this big bonding and vacation trip, and I got sick. And really, I think I got sick because I was stressed out the whole 2 weeks beforehand, trying to get everything planned and tickets and hotel rooms and all of that stuff. So I think it finally caught up with me. Besides the fact that TJ kept dragging me out on the river and making me eat fish.
They're not going to believe that one.
But really, just in all of that, I think they say stress sometimes makes you sick. Just coming back, having this past week back at school, being sick, it just was like, man, I need something to get me through. And I looked up, hey, I just need a verse on stress. I don't have anything memorized, so give me something. So I went and I looked up, and it gave me 1 Thessalonians. And 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18 says, always be joyful, never stop praying. Be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ Jesus. And I was like, for real? This is the verse you're giving me? I'm sick. I'm tired. I just want to stay at home and sleep for a week. But I just took a week off. So I had to go to work. It's not going to make me less stressful. It's going to make me stress more because I don't want to be joyful. I don't want to give thanks. And I'll pray when I get around to it. Anybody else ever felt like that? Probably. So, just in reading that, it really, after taking time and thinking about it, I was like, man, okay, I get it. I hear what you're saying. And, I'm joking about the whole praying thing, but so many times in life, we get caught saying, oh, I'll pray when I get around to it. But I can do the prayer thing. Like, I pray. Yes, I'll pray. I'll throw a shout out to you, But when I look at the be joyful and the be thankful, I'm like, it was hard. I'm in that situation of trying to figure out how to be joyful and how to be thankful is, whatever, stressed out. How to be joyful, how to be thankful, when I'm late to work and this guy cuts me off and I'm like, dude, don't you know it's 7:28 and I have to be at school at 7:30, and then I pull up. If you drop Logan off, you understand this one. And then I pull up to the stop sign where the school is, and there's a line of 40 cars. Why is 7:28? Why aren't you guys at school already? Never mind, I didn't get up until 7 o'clock to start heading to work. But, you want me to be joyful in this and thankful? No, not happening. And then, I don't know, me and TJ, I think we talk and converse about what we're speaking about, but we don't. But then to think about, man, how as a Christian can we be thankful when it seems like, man, there's an assault on Christians in America right now? I don't even know her name. I don't know that I'll even agree, but the lady who got locked up for maybe her mixed up Christian values, but she was trying to stand up for her Christian values, and she gets locked up. She goes to jail for 5 days, and then you got some people that'll hit somebody with a car and won't go to jail, or abuse a kid and won't go to jail. It's like, man, and then you have the shootings in South Carolina where we're at a Bible study. Somebody walks in and just opens fire on Christians in America. And then we have, kind of it close to home for me, the shooting in Oregon. We send, I coach, we send basketball players down to Oklahoma all the time. We actually bring them up here, the college coaches, to recruit our kids and take them down there. And then to see that somebody assaulted and shot and killed Christians in a classroom setting, where do you want me to be thankful? And it just was a struggle this past week trying to figure that out. And then TJ has been speaking on David, and I love that whole kind of series on David, and just thinking back on it and trying to go back to those teachings during this time, and then just thinking with David, I kind of always use that as a scapegoat. TJ's been teaching on it, like, well, man, I'd always, when I was younger, I'd look at David, I'd be like, I'm golden. I'm good to go. Never murdered anybody. I don't know if you know a lot about David, but David was kind of a ruthless guy when he was, he raided towns and people, and it's like, man, I'm golden. Good to go compared to David. But that would be my younger days, just comparing myself, like, yeah, well, David did it, so I can do it, and then I can still be somebody that follows God. And not the right way to look at it. But just looking at David's experience, one thing that I really have started to see more when I hear the story of David is I think about kind of the wilderness experience. And just how, David was there multiple times. David was in that wilderness experience as a young boy. He was there before he became king, and there after he became a king. And if you think about it, when David was a child, he was 15, 14, he was tending his sheep, and pretty much that was kind of in the wilderness, that was in the high mountains, and he was attentive to God, and he was learning God's ways, and in the wilderness he was becoming that man after God's heart. And then we know that David, he goes and he fights the Philistine, he kills the Philistine, and King David's gonna be king. Samuel went and anointed David's head when he was a young boy. He's gonna be the king. So then we know that David is chased by Saul. His second wilderness experience. He is like being tormented and chased by Saul, and Saul wants to kill him. Saul's like, no, I'm the king. I was appointed the king. You're not going to take my spot. And still, David finds a way to be joyful and thankful in the wilderness. And actually comes to a spot in 1 Samuel where David has an opportunity to take Saul out. And David decides, this is who the Lord has appointed as king. And I'm going to try and find favor with him. And David gets a high five from me, because if somebody was trying to take me out, I just don't see myself feeling like, it's all good, dude. Well, let's go and have a party and celebrate, and I'll do whatever you want me to do. I just don't see that happening. But, so David has a chance to take him out, and he says no. This is who God has appointed as king, and I'm going to show Saul that, hey, I'm here to serve you. In the midst of this wilderness experience where you've chased me from town to town, and he shows Saul, hey, I had a chance to take you out. I I decided, no, I'm not going to. And Saul says, man, you're right. Go about your way. I'll stop chasing you. I'm going to go home. And he lied. He ended up chasing David again, and going after David, and David had another chance to kind of do Saul in. Passed up that opportunity and said, no, we're not going to lay a hand on the anointed man who God has put as king, but I'm going to let him know one more time. I had a chance to take you out, and I did. And to the point to where David went and lived with the Philistines. Once again, who's going to volunteer to go and live with their enemy? I'm a West grad. You cannot pay me enough money to go and work at East High School. To go and be over at East. This is not going to happen. But David was so tormented and so, kind of trying to find relief that he's like, I'll even go and stay with my enemies. And the bad thing is, his enemies were nicer to him than his own nation. So that was his second wilderness experience. And then his third wilderness experience was his own son was trying to kill him. Absalom chased his own dad through the wilderness, because Absalom wanted to be king and wanted to find favor with the people, and David had to take all his followers and flee off into the wilderness. And once again, he finds himself in the wilderness. And this time, I think we find a little bit different out of David. He's a little bit more melancholy, more feeling sorrowful for himself, and agony at the fact that his son is chasing him through the wilderness. And I find that to be more for me. When I find myself in my wilderness experience, that's my wife. There's been two people in my life that I think have kind of really ever noticed when I was in that time. It was not like it was something bad, I was robbing banks and raiding people or stuff like that. But my wife, she's always like, what's wrong? And of course, men, the answer is nothing. Thank you, Molly. I know something's wrong. What's wrong? I said nothing. And she knows deep down inside something's going on. But of course, I'm not going to admit it to say that something's wrong because everything's always good. And somebody who's known me for a little while, since I was in sophomore in high school, about Women's age, and there'll be times where we'll be headed out fishing, and I'll just be staring out the window, and she'll look at me and say, hey, what's on your mind? And every now and then maybe I'll share a little tidbit, just because that's man to man. You can share a little bit with the guys, but even still, not sharing that whole aspect, just kind of, not a whole lot, nothing really. And just going through that wilderness experience, feeling almost by yourself and lonely. And when you think about, the wilderness, you think about David going through the wilderness, and Jacob, wrestling God in the wilderness. You think kind of desolation. You think, loneliness. You think a lot of those type things when you talk about, when you think about that wilderness type experience. But also, if you think about the wilderness, that John the Baptist had ministry there. He preached in the wilderness. And then you think Jesus was tested and tried, and that was the beginning of his ministry, coming out of the wilderness. And one thing, when you look at David, each time that he went through his wilderness experience, each time that he was tested, each time he was filling in that spot of loneliness, when he came out of the wilderness, or when he was in the wilderness, there was always a purpose. There was always a reason for him to be there. There was always a point for him to be in that place at that time. And like I said, to have to go and stay with your enemy, you have to go and, run from your own son. You think, what purpose is there in that? What possibly could come out of that? But if you read, you know that when David came out of the wilderness, each time he put Israel back in order. He came out as a new creation, new being, and when he went through, there was always something good that came out of the other side of that. So even though, for myself, looking back in the last couple of weeks and looking at all the stuff that Christians have been going through in this last year, just here at home in America, not to mention overseas, Syrian Christians having to escape and run for their lives. That yes, it's hard, yes, it's tough, but there's a purpose. And when you come out of that, you're moved to a new position. Sometimes being in the wilderness is a place of transition. Sometimes when you're going through something, and it may not even, it doesn't have to be big. It could be something just to self-pity, looking at my, oh man, I had to put this trip together. So hard, it took so long. I've been home for a week, and it still feels like I haven't seen my family because I've been coughing and sick and trying not to get my wife and my baby sick. So it might be something as small as that, or it may be something big, but when you come through that, there's a reason for it. And it took a minute for all that to sink in when I read 1 Thessalonians. To always be joyful, to always be in prayer, and to always give thanks in every situation. Another guy that I kind of look at is Paul. Paul always in a tough spot. Paul, he was the one that wrote that testimony. To always be joyful, to always be thankful, and always be praying, no matter what the situation. And I'm a coach, so I put things in coaching terms, coaching aspects. Even though TJ says don't do sports, we got to do sports. When you get a team in high school, right? You start out playing a game, Logan. You walk on the football field and they just said, okay, we're going to go play a game. No. What they do is, as a coach, we put you through 3 weeks of the hardest, toughest, painful experience that you hopefully have ever had. And the purpose of that, and I'm glad I did this because I've never really thought about it in this aspect. But I looked at that and I'm like, man, you put them through this not for the easy times. You don't train kids and push kids to their max and push athletes to their max so that they can use it in the good times. You push kids to their max. You push athletes to their max so that when they're in that tough situation, when things are hard, they can still perform. That now they're at their peak, and when in that tough situation, they can say, I've already been through this. already struggled with this. This is nothing. I've been there, I've seen this, and I can get through. So, comparing that wilderness experience to, hey, if you've gone through, if you've fought the battle, if you know, come home and looked at your husband and said, if I could legally kill you, you'd be dead right now. Love you, baby. Yeah. Hey, if you've been in that situation where you're like, man, Lord, why would this happen to your people? Why would you protect your people? If you've been in that tough situation and gotten through, then when it happens, again, you know I've been there. I've done that. I've been through this wilderness. And I've come out as a transformed person, as a new person, a new creature. And I know how to persevere through this. And I think when Paul talks about that in Thessalonians, and he puts that emphasis on joy, it's not so much the emotion of joy as the expression of joy. No, you might not be joyful, but when others look at you, they should see something different. They should see, as a Christian, that I know this is hard, but I still believe that this is for the good of our people. You know, as a Christian, this is going to better us, and if we show that to the world, they'll see that as that joy that Paul is talking about. And talking about being thankful, you know, am I thankful at all? No, man. I say, you know, if I was in that situation, I couldn't say that if somebody shot my wife or my daughter, that I would not be the first one trying to hunt them down. I couldn't say that that's true about me. But to pray and to talk about continuing praying and knowing that, hey, I'm thankful that in God's plan, I know that something good is going to come out of it. And it's something that we can rejoice and be thankful in is going to come out of it. So that just in Thessalonians, they were just, Paul was convinced, you know, he was convinced that in all circumstances, God is at work on our behalf. And just think as we go through our weeks, as we go through our months, our years, that in every situation, as we look at that, always be joyful, always pray, and always be thankful. That if we can apply that, if we can apply Paul's thoughts of, hey, in every situation, God has a plan, then we'll make it through. We'll be more than okay at the end. And that is the short and sweet end. Because, like I said, but, dear Lord, just thank you for the opportunity to come and speak. Just ask that you would continue to work in my heart and all others, that you would let us continually know that you have our best interest in heart, and that you have a plan for everything. And even though we go through, there is a purpose and a bright side to everything that happens. In your name I pray. Amen.
Chane said the question then becomes, we said kind of in the call to worship this morning too, will we turn and offer that to God, or will we keep it to ourselves? When we give thanks in all things, God, thanks for the journey in the wilderness. It's a great time. I don't know about you, but I used to not say that when I was in the middle of the journey. At the end of the journey, I go, wow, God, as I could look back and go, man, That really stunk, but I'm really glad I did because I'm better. It brought me back to that foot of the cross. Even Paul's lines that I've used often. I now embrace the suffering, for I know which it brings. I now embrace that wilderness component, for I know which it brings. It brings me closer to the foot of the cross. So continue in worship. God's asking, will we offer up those things to God? Will we say, God, here's my stuff. The great stuff, the good stuff, and the really hard, painful stuff. That's what He's looking for.